Hey guys, it's Anthony Bandiero here, joined with Zach Miller, legal instructor for Blue to Gold. How you doing, Zach?
Doing well.
All right, so I
Got
think
a
you got a fascinating question. What is this question that I've always thought about,
it,
but never really discussed?
it's a very short, simple sounding question, but it's a very good one. Do state courts have to follow decisions of the lower federal courts, so like the obviously the district courts, but more importantly, the federal circuit courts of appeals? Do states their courts have to follow decisions on regarding federal constitutional interpretations?
Okay, good. So I think, and let me tell you what my initial reaction here is, and you fine tune this here. The first thing is yes, we're first of all, every state has to comply with the Fourth Amendment, right? They may be more restrictive, like your Washingtons, your New Mexicos, and so forth, but every state has to comply with the Fourth Amendment. So I think the first answer I want to say is that absolutely not, without question, does a state court have to comply with a federal district court opinion because it's not binding on anybody. Is that what do you think about that?
That's absolutely correct. It's not, yeah, the federal district court is not even binding on itself moving
Right.
forward.
They
Right.
can have like they can be bipolar or whatever. You know what I mean? One day
Right.
they are this
Yes.
and one day they're that. Okay.
Yeah.
The
Right.
next question is, do they have to? Does a state court, whether it's a Supreme Court, an appellate court, or whatever, have to comply with their circuit, their federal circuit? And I think ultimately, as weird as it sounds, the answer is no. They can diverge and make an opinion that actually conflicts with that federal appellate court. What is your thoughts on that?
I think that is right as a matter of constitutional law. So
Mhm.
let's use the Ninth Circuit as an example. The Ninth Circuit decides a Fourth Amendment issue one way, a specific issue that hasn't been decided by the Supreme Court. Obviously, the Supreme Court's decided it.
I
It's a
see.
moot
That's a
point.
good point. That's a good point. We're
Yeah.
talking about
So
these unsettled areas. Okay.
yes, which there are many of them
Yeah.
that we deal with. So we got an unsettled issue by the Supreme Court. Ninth Circuit decides this is the Fourth Amendment answer. Same issue arises in California State Court shortly after the Ninth Circuit's opinion.
Okay.
Does the California Supreme Court, do they have to follow the decision and the analysis of the Ninth Circuit? And I think, and you seem to agree, the answer is no. The California appellate courts can decide that same issue differently. They think the Fourth Amendment doesn't mean that, or it means something slightly different. And I think they are within their authority to do that.
I got to tell you, I've just like I've studied thousands and thousands of cases. I've only ever seen this issue come up, if unless I'm, maybe it's, but I've only really seen it come up several times in California, where I've read and that's why when I first read it, I got to say I was like blown away. Like, what do you like? It actually went against everything I thought was right. He's like, but the federal court is the supremacy clause and this and that, and so it said like we are not bound by federal decisions, and it's of course except the Supreme Court, right? And I was like blown away. And then that case. I don't know if you have the name of that case, but that was a case that you're like, yeah, that's the California Supreme Court case.
Yeah, and unfortunately I don't.
That's okay. That's okay. We
I
don't
don't
really
have
need
the
it for today's
case in
discussion.
mind.
And it's all right
Yeah.
because even people that really care, even the people watching this are like, this is just academic. And because I think it's academic because where's the so what, right? Because I got to tell you, when I teach in the Ninth Circuit, I do not teach them to give the finger to the Ninth Circuit, right? And you would probably think that would be bad advice. Why
Right.
would that be bad advice to tell my cops that, yeah, even though the Ninth Circuit decided this, even if I do think it's wrong, I think we still teach it to teach to comply with it. And why is that good advice?
Because what if you end up being so for exclusionary rule purposes, we're going to go with whatever the state court says.
Okay.
But what if civil liability is the issue? What if you end up being sued under Section 1983 for violating what the Ninth Circuit interprets that as a violation of the Fourth Amendment?
Right.
If you're in federal court, they're going to apply the federal position, and
Right.
you could be liable um, under the Ninth Circuit's interpretation.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
we don't want to discount at all the federal position.
yeah. So if you are a cop and you have a situation where it doesn't happen often at all, but if you have a case where, oh, my state Supreme Court says I can do it, and my federal circuit says I cannot do it, here would be my best advice. talk to your legal counselor, right? Because you are
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
you're in between a rock and a hard place. And
Mhm.
you can still get sued if under the if you're taken to if you decide that your state is correct and you do it and you get sued and they bring you into federal court, you're going to lose that case. And because they're going to do, the federal court is going to do the same thing that the state court did, give a finger to their sister court. The federal court's going to say, we don't have to comply with the
Mhm.
state court because we're the feds. And so you're still going to be found
Right.
liable. Now, I will say this though, there are some situations, and this is again purely academic, and I think it's a fun conversation to have, but there are some cases which I know are so wrong that if I was a police advisor, to my, I would tell them to, and I'll give you a good example. Okay, the Ninth Circuit at this point is one of the most anti-gun, circuits in the country, and they have held,
Mhm.
that 10-round mags are constitutional. No, no, they are not. Okay, I just know, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I just know that that's not consistent with the Second Amendment. And I guess what I'm saying is if my state passed a law that said that we can take people to jail for having a 30 round mag. If I was the legal advisor or the chief of police, I'm not enforcing that law. But I'm also biased because I'm very pro Second Amendment. Maybe I'm jaded. But the point is, some stuff is just clearly unconstitutional. There was some stuff going on during COVID where some laws came out that I thought were crossed the line of constitutional. Cops being in people's backyards to break up birthday parties, right? And I guess my point is, this
Yeah.
is kind of a little off topic, but sometimes courts can say, "Oh yeah, that's constitutional," right? Absolutely. You can't be within 6 feet of your sister. And I'm like, no, that's not
Mhm.
constitutional, right? And so I would rather go with the least
Right.
restrictive court in that case. But it's all academic. We're not,
Yeah.
we're that's not our position in life. We're just, peons here, just trying to teach cops to make good case law. We don't make these decisions and so forth. Anything else to add? Did we miss anything, Zach?
Well, no, I mean, I would agree that it's at the end of the day, it's a pretty academic discussion. It's fascinating to you and I,
Yep.
but we do have a lot of officers that do try to like keep up with case law and follow. They'll follow FLETC. They'll get their monthly
Yep.
newsletter and learning what's going on in federal circuits. And so I think there's a significant number of our officers that would like to know the answer to that question. Do I have to follow decisions of the circuit that I'm in?
Yeah.
And the answer we believe is no,
Right. And
but
we're
they
not positive,
are
by the way, not
entitled to
positive.
great.
Yeah.
I'm not positive the
No,
Supreme
but
Court's never specifically
right,
addressed
right.
it,
But
but many courts, here's one quote for you from California. Many state courts do take this position that California Supreme Court has said. We are not bound by decisions of the lower federal courts, even on federal issues like the Fourth Amendment, but they are persuasive and they are entitled to great weight,
they should be.
says
Absolutely.
the Supreme Court of California. So,
I like that. Now, one thing,
yeah.
I'm sorry if this all gelled together here, but did we actually explain to our audience why the state can actually disregard? What was the legal principle behind their
No,
separation?
I think we missed that
Yeah.
obvious, that
So, what is the
important
answer there?
part.
Why can they
Well,
do
because
this?
we have the supremacy clause in Article 4 of the federal Constitution that says that federal law is supreme when it conflicts with state law. But when it comes to decisions of the courts, like only the Supreme Court, I believe, is where the supremacy clause comes into play. I don't think it applies to the inferior courts, the lower courts. And states are separate sovereigns. In our system of government, the state it's part of the United States, but it's also its own independent sovereign that has its own rulemaking authority, police power authority. So it's separate and distinct
Yeah.
from the federal government in our system. That's why.
Yeah, and again, there are some people like, oh, so you're saying that if the Ninth Circuit gives an injunction against LAPD, they don't have to comply with it? No, because that LAPD is a party to that case. We're not talking about their
Right.
we're just talking about their decisions, right? They're saying that, hey, we think the Fourth Amendment means this. We think the Second Amendment means that. And you have a state court on their own independent state grounds, or just their own analysis of the issue, saying, actually, we don't think that's correct. They're judges too, and again, I'm not positive on this. I'm not positive, but I do think that the California State Supreme Court is onto something here. That they have their own independent authority to evaluate the Fourth Amendment on their own merits. Under their own belief of
Mhm.
what the Fourth Amendment is, and then the Supreme Court is supposed to take care of the differences. And
Yeah,
they
there
and they
there are
have.
definitely state federal circuit splits on issues, and right, the Supreme Court, that's the court that is counted on
Yeah.
to resolve the split.
Interesting discussion. Purely academic. Do not take anything and run with this. Talk to your legal advisor. But we just kind of want. I thought it was a fascinating question that I've never really had a dialogue with anybody about because it doesn't come up that often. But it's interesting. If you like what we're doing here, please hit like, subscribe, share with your friends. Zach, as always, thank you for being on the show.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Until next time, my friends. Stay safe.